Chapter 31. The bigger the stage, the bigger the embarrassment. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. After Principal Su gave a simple speech, the host was about to invite Lu Siyu to speak on stage. Unexpectedly, Principal Su stood up, smiled, and introduced student Lu personally to everyone present. Next, let's welcome this year's outstanding freshman representative from Zhenhai High School. She's also the winner of the International Mathematical Olympiad Special Prize. When Lu Siyu heard this, she raised her hand to tidy her hair. The corners of her lips curled into a perfect smile as she stood up and was about to walk up the stage. She had just taken a step when she heard the principal on the stage say loudly, "Student Lu Miao." Lu Siyu's body, which had already stood up, instantly froze on the spot. She was completely stunned, and her head was buzzing. Lu Miao. Did she hear wrongly? How was this possible? The headmaster had already confirmed that she would be the one to speak on stage. Yesterday, he had even personally brought her to familiarize herself with the process and venue. Moreover, the special prize winner of the International Mathematical Olympiad. Lu Miao. What kind of joke was this? She had seen Lu Miao's single-digit results for all her subjects with her own eyes. How could such a bad student win the special prize at the International Mathematical Olympiad? Moreover, the highest prize in the International Mathematical Olympiad was the first prize. How could there be a special prize? She turned her head abruptly to look at the headmaster, only to see that the headmaster was also dumbfounded. On the other hand, the principal and the experts on the stage were beaming with joy. She could not help but grit her teeth. Damn it, Lu Miao had gone behind her back to talk to the principal. Principal Su and the Gu family were trying to save face, so they concocted this plan to let her go up on stage in a public and honorable manner, even going as far as to have experts to support her. Maybe she stole her award. If looks could kill, Lu Miao would have been pierced with 1,000 arrows by now. The principal on the stage was still enthusiastically introducing. Student Lu Miao created 2 advanced mathematics formulas in the International Mathematical Olympiad at the age of 16, stunning the entire International Mathematical Olympiad organization. She will definitely have unlimited potential in the future. It was better for him to be the one to talk about the self-created formula. Otherwise, if Lu Miao were to say that she was lazy and casually wrote it, he was afraid that all the students and the experts backstage would be so shocked that they would vomit blood. All the students in Year 3 Class 1 were shocked. F***ck, was boss that powerful? They didn't even know that such a genius was by their side every day. Shen Muhan was so excited that he almost jumped up. Bo. Su Mo, who was at the side, quickly reached out and covered his mouth, not allowing him to make a sound so as not to embarrass her boss. However, all the students in Year 3 Class 1 were filled with excitement. All the teachers and students in the audience were so shocked by this news that they could not close their mouths. Thinking of their past contempt, they felt their face burning with shame. In the audience, Shen Qinghe did not expect Lu Miao to be so talented. No wonder she kept saying that she could handle the admission notice herself and did not need a tutor. It seemed that she had really misunderstood. It seemed that she had really earned everything with her own ability. Hey, she isn't the daughter of that person who was sitting next to us earlier, right? The parents in the audience were discussing. Shen Qinghe glanced at Qin Shuang, who had deliberately sat not far away from her and said proudly, "Of course not. My child is usually too low. Key. So it's your child. Congratulations, your child is so outstanding. If my child had even 1% of yours, I would be relieved," one parent complimented Shen Qinghe. "Sister, how do you usually educate and nurture children? You should also pass on some of your experience to us." Qin Shuang's face turned green with anger when she saw everyone surrounding Shen Qinghe and complimenting her. She was even angrier when she heard that Lu Miao was Shen Qinghe's child. She had wanted to use this opportunity to suppress Shen Qinghe, but who would have thought that it would turn into a humiliation? On the other side, Lu Miao sensed someone looking at her. Her eyelids lifted slightly, and she raised her eyebrows as she glanced at Lu Xiyu. Then, she calmly stood up and went on stage. In Lu Xiyu's eyes, this glance was a provocation. She wished she could immediately rush up and gouge out her eyes. In order to commend Lu Miao for creating advanced mathematics formulas, the city leaders even specially awarded her an additional 20,000 yuan scholarship on the spot. This was the first time in the history of all the high schools in Luo City. Although the amount wasn't much, it was significant. After the ceremony, there were still 2 more classes in the morning. All the students had to go back to classes. Several leaders had to leave for other matters, and the principal went out to see them off. He specifically instructed Lu Miao to stay where she was for a moment. Lu Miao was bored and took out her phone to play some games. Qin Shuang brought Lu Xiyu over aggressively. Lu Miao, how dare you steal Xiyu's award and snatch Xiyu's chance to speak on stage? Do you know how long Xiyu has been preparing for this opportunity? How much did you pay? Mom, forget it. I'm the older sister. It's only right for me to give in to my younger sister. Lu Xiyu said aggrievedly. These words undoubtedly added fuel to the fire. The anger in Qin Shuang's heart instantly soared. Don't speak up for her. What are you trying to do? Today should have been a day for Qin Shuang to receive the envy of other parents, but because of Lu Miao, she ended up making such a big fool of herself. Her limelight was all stolen by Shen Qinghe. Lu Miao put away her phone and said, if you want to act out a loving mother-daughter relationship, go home and do it. The special prize is what I earned, and the admission was decided by the principal. Whoever has the ability goes up on stage. But for some people, no matter how big the stage is, she would still be embarrassing herself. Even if I let her go up, can she climb up? Lu Xiyu's eyes instantly turned red from being rebuked. She wanted to kill someone in her heart, but she still had to put on a pitiful expression. When Qin Shuang saw this, her heart ached terribly. She immediately scolded Lu Miao, you know very well what kind of trash you are. Did you get the grand prize? Isn't it just the Gu family manipulating behind the scenes and stealing Xiyu's award to give to you? You still have the face to say that you took it yourself. Mrs. Lu, you have to speak with evidence. Our Gu family has never helped Miao Miao with anything. Miao Miao could go on stage because she is outstanding enough. If your adopted daughter wants to go on stage, it got to depends on whether she has the ability. Shen Qinghe had already guessed that Qin Shuang and Lu Qin would definitely come to find trouble with Lu Miao. The moment she saw Qin Shuang disappear, she immediately came over. Qin Shuang's expression turned even uglier when she heard her emphasize that Lu Xiyu was her adopted daughter. She gritted her teeth and said, Mrs. Gu, Miao Miao is my biological daughter. I'm educating my own daughter. I don't need an outsider like you to interrupt. Last time, there was Gu Shiyan. This time, it was only Shen Qinghe alone. She was not afraid. You also know that Miao Miao is your biological daughter. You belittled her so much and protected Lu Xiyu. I thought that Lu Xiyu was the biological one. Shen Qinghe said sarcastically. Chapter 32. Bias to the Extreme. 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin Shuang's face turned green and white for a while. The principal and the headmaster had just sent the ministers of the education department back. They happened to see the situation here and hurriedly went forward. What's wrong? Qin Shuang was the first to complain. Principal Su, my Xiyu prepared for so long and sacrificed so much just to go on stage to give her speech. She didn't even sleep last night to practice her speech script. You didn't even say hello and replaced her just like that. You even stole her award. You have to give our family an explanation, right? The principal was a little baffled. Lu Miao was the one who was chosen to do this from the start. I've already asked the person in charge to inform the others. It was also Lu Miao's name on the schedule list. I asked someone to change it. The headmaster said in a deep voice, then looked at Shen Qinghe beside him. Principal Su, I know that the Gu family spent a lot of money to donate a building to the school for Lu Miao's admission. They have indeed made a great contribution to the school. For the sake of the Gu family, it's understandable for you to let Lu Miao speak on stage. However, with her grades, she might not even be able to understand the professors, right? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and it's better to let outstanding students like Siyu take advantage of it. That day, he specifically went to the school archives to check Lu Miao's information. From elementary school to junior high school in the countryside, all her grades were in the single digits. She did not have any subject grades when she entered the school, which means she did not participate in any exams before entering the school. This effectively confirmed the rumors that Lu Miao had donated the building to gain admission. Therefore, when the principal said that Lu Miao won the award, he did not believe it at all. Lu Siyu, who was at the side, said aggrievedly, "Headmaster, I'm fine. There's really no need. Miao Miao is my younger sister, so it's only right to give the opportunity to her. I just have a question about my studies. I'll tell Miao Miao to go see the professor and ask him for me. She doesn't even speak English. Letting her ask questions is just embarrassing." Qin Shuang said disdainfully. Shen Qinghe was furious. She would never allow anyone to belittle Lu Miao in front of her. "I don't know if she knows English, but I know that some people don't even know how to speak the human language." Qin Shuang's face instantly turned ashen. Was she scolding her in a roundabout way? The principal also sighed emotionally as he watched from the side. Qin Shuang was clearly Lu Miao's biological mother, but she belittled Lu Miao in every possible way and protected Lu Siyu in every way. Her heart was biased to the extremes. Those who did not know would probably think that Shen Qinghe was Lu Miao's biological mother. Helpless, he could only persuade the two of them and then look at the headmaster. "Who told you that Lu Miao got into the school because the Gu family donated a building?" "Principal Su, there's no need to lie for her anymore. All the students in the school already know," the headmaster said directly. Principal Su was a little speechless. "I don't know where this rumor came from. Student Lu Miao was specially recruited by the school because she won the special prize at the International Mathematical Olympiad. He had to fly back halfway through his academic exchange program because of Lu Miao's admission, and he had been busy with other things since then, so he didn't know about all the rumors circulating around the school." "That's impossible. She only got 4 marks in her math exam in the countryside. I'm afraid she can't even solve a linear equation. Moreover, according to past practice, there was no special prize in the National Olympic Games. Even if she really showed you the certificate, it must be a fake certificate that she deliberately got someone to fabricate," the headmaster said with absolute certainty. Qin Shuang nodded and chimed in. "This award was clearly stolen from my Siyu." Principal Su was rather helpless. "I saw Lu Miao's test paper with my own eyes. She had never stolen anyone's award. The special prize was specially set up for her because the organization felt that the first prize could not reflect her excellence." The headmaster frowned and said directly, "You only looked at the test papers, but you didn't see them with your own eyes. The Gu family is so rich. It's not impossible for them to bribe others to use her name to participate in the competition or use some means to cheat." Shen Qinghe wanted to roll her eyes at them. Was it difficult to admit that others were outstanding? Principal Su was completely speechless. "What do you have to do to make you believe that she really did it herself?" The headmaster thought for a moment. "I can find some Olympiad questions for her on the spot to prove to you that she doesn't know anything at all." Then, she turned to look at Lu Miao. "Do you dare?" Lu Miao nodded indifferently. "Headmaster, can I try it too?" Lu Siyu bit her lip and asked humbly. She had to let the principal see who was truly outstanding between her and Lu Miao. The headmaster looked at her and nodded in satisfaction. Of course. Such a humble and outstanding student was what their school should have. A scum like Lu Miao should be kicked out. The group soon arrived at the principal's office. The headmaster quickly searched for 10 questions for the International Mathematical Olympiad on the internet. Some of them were even super class questions that high school students would not learn. In order to prevent Lu Miao from cheating, he even asked her to hand over her phone and stood beside her to keep an eye on her, not giving her any chance to cheat. He had especially found a spacious and bright place for Lu Xiu. Clearly, he trusted her strength. Lu Xiu roughly looked through all the questions. A few of them were probably beyond the curriculum and were not knowledge learned in high school. Although the remaining questions were not easy, she was confident that she could solve them. She picked up the questions and began to answer them carefully. 10 minutes later, Lu Miao put down the pen in her hand and said lazily, "I'm done." The headmaster looked at the scattered answers on her paper. He reached out and picked up her test paper in disdain. Who are you trying to fool? If these questions could be solved so easily, would they still be called the Mathematical Olympiad? As he spoke, he found the correct answer and began to compare it. Just as he was about to open his mouth to mock her, the more he read, the more shocked he became. Even though the steps to solve the questions were completely different, the answers to every question were exactly the same. Even the answers to those university questions that were beyond the scope of the curriculum were completely correct. But how was this possible? Even if he copied the answers from the standard answers, 10 minutes might not even be enough to write so many formulas. On the other hand, Lu Miao's solution process skipped a few steps from the standard answers. Even he could not understand it. Qin Shuang urged anxiously, "How is it? Did she write everything blindly?" Chapter 33. Let her stand high enough to make the fall hurt more. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The headmaster hesitated for a long time. They had been standing by the side just now and had seen her do it with their own eyes. There was no reason for him to say that she had cheated. Lu Miao said lazily, "Headmaster, can I go now?" The headmaster's eyes looked back and forth between the test paper and the answer for a long time. Finally, he found a reason and immediately said, "There's a problem with the steps you used to solve these questions. The formula you used is completely wrong. Did you see these questions somewhere before? Did you just randomly write down the process in the middle and then jump straight to the answer?" Before he could finish his sentence, the principal's eyes instantly lit up. "What did you say?" "The steps are wrong, and the formula used is wrong." He quickly went forward and snatched the test paper from his hand. The headmaster thought that he had finally found Lu Miao's flaw, so he confidently pointed at the answer beside him. "You can compare them to the standard answers. I can guarantee with my character that there's definitely something wrong with the solution process." "Wait a moment." The principal rushed out excitedly with the test paper. Oh my God, is a new formula going to be born? And he gets to witness it with his own eyes. He knew that as long as Lu Miao was around, there would be new surprises. She created an advanced mathematics formula with just a few questions. National treasure, this is a national treasure. In the principal's office, Qin Shuang thought that there must be a problem with Lu Miao's solution process. She looked at Shen Qinghe proudly and said to Lu Xiu, "Baby, take your time. There's no hurry. We can't write blindly." Lu Xiu nodded obediently and continued to do the questions with her head lowered. A few minutes later, the principal and several professors walked in briskly with flushed faces. Ignoring the headmaster and others, they walked straight to the front of Lu Miao and began introducing themselves. "Lu Miao, this is the internationally renowned mathematics professor Eric. This is..." Before he could finish introducing them, Eric, who was at the very front, had already reached out to shake Lu Miao's hand and started talking excitedly. The person beside him didn't wait for him to finish his sentence and immediately squeezed him over, reaching out his hand toward Lu Miao passionately. A few professors who were usually influential internationally were as excited as children. Lu Miao's hand was about to break from the grip, but she quickly exerted a little strength to free her hand. Then, she fluently answered the various questions raised by the professors. The headmaster, Qin Shuang, and Lu Xiu could not believe their ears when they heard Lu Miao's fluent and pure English. There were even a few words of German in between. Was this the Lu Miao who only scored 1 or 2 points in English every time? Although the professor spoke English mixed with other languages throughout, the headmaster and Lu Xiu still understood a few of the sentences in the middle. The headmaster had just accused Lu Miao of using the wrong formula and having problems with the steps in solving several problems, but it turned out that Lu Miao had actually created a new formula on her own during the 10-minute time limit for solving the problems. Lu Xiu's breathing stopped, and her face turned pale. She wanted to deny it and say that Lu Miao must have cheated. However, who would give such a huge achievement to Lu Miao when even the professor did not know about the new formula? She looked at the test paper in front of her. She had just finished one question, but Lu Miao had not only finished 10 questions, but she had also created a new formula. The difference between them was like a sky-high cliff. She had always thought that she was a genius. She did not expect that she would be completely crushed in front of Lu Miao. Qin Shuang's expression turned ugly. What did this mean? The trash Lu Miao that she had abandoned was actually a genius. This unfilial thing. If she had the ability, she should have said so earlier. Wasn't this slapping her face in public? The headmaster wanted to raise his doubts again, but he couldn't open his mouth when he saw how excited the professors were. The authority of these professors had been globally certified. If he questioned something that even they recognized, wouldn't he be embarrassing himself? The reporters from the TV station had not left yet. The principal immediately called the reporters over and reported in detail about Lu Miao's feat of creating a new formula. He even specially interviewed Shen Qinghe, Lu Miao's parent. Shen Qinghe, who had always kept a low profile and never appeared in front of the media, made an exception and accepted the reporter's interview. Looking at Shen Qinghe's smug look, Qin Shuang was so angry that her nose was about to go crooked. The internationally renowned professors were full of praise for Lu Miao in front of the cameras, their eyes filled with regret that they could not pull her into their own research lab. When Lu Miao left, a large stack of invitation cards and contact information was stuffed into her hands. After the interview, they walked out of the principal's office. Shen Qinghe smiled and patted Lu Miao's shoulder. My Miao Miao is really amazing. When you go back, I'll reward you with a property. You can choose from anywhere in the world. Then, she turned to look at Qin Shuang behind her. I have to thank Madame Lu for abandoning Lu Miao back then, allowing the Gu family to pick up such a treasure. Upon hearing a simple, thank you, Qin Shuang was so enraged that she left with a black face. She didn't even bother with Lu Xiu who was behind her and left straight away. Lu Miao sent Shen Qinghe back to the classroom and pushed open the door. Shen Muhan and Su Mo were standing in 2 lines at the door with their entire class. They shouted in unison, "Welcome back, boss." O.org Lu Miao. Shen Muhan took a step forward, bent over, and reached out to her. Boss, little Han will help you onto the dragon carriage. With that, he waved his hand, and 2 boys immediately carried a chair over. Lu Miao raised her hand and gave him a flick on his head. That's enough, you guys. The group of people then snickered and escorted her back to her seat. Boss, you're too awesome. Creating a new formula. This is going to be a textbook in the future, right? Su Mo said excitedly. Just now, the whole school must have been embarrassed. Especially that Lu Xiu, her face must be smashed. A group of people laughed loudly at the side. How can textbooks be enough? My boss will definitely win the Nobel Prize in the future and be famous for eternity. Shen Muhan looked very proud as if he was the one who had created a new formula to win the Nobel Prize. Boss, you should have said so earlier. You let that despicable Lu Xiu be smug for so long for no reason. Lu Miao curled her lips. Of course, I had to let her stand high enough to make the fall hurt more. Shen Muhan immediately gave her a thumbs up. Boss is brilliant. But boss, aren't you being too mean? You're clearly a genius, but you still hid it from us. I thought you were really a bad student and was worried that you would suffer a blow. Lu Miao casually picked up a book and flipped it open. I never said that I was bad at studying. Ah. Shen Muhan blinked. So, you're really reading books and doing questions every day. Chapter 34. Had an ulterior motive all along. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Lu Miao raised her eyebrows and looked at him. Then, what do you think I was doing? I thought you were just putting on an act. Shen Muhan scratched his head in embarrassment. Ah, our boss is such a genius, yet still works so hard, studying and doing problems every moment. I also want to learn from our boss and beat the experimental class. Shen Muhan shouted and quickly returned to his seat, taking out his textbook and exercises to start working. Yes, comrades, charge. Learn from boss and beat the experimental class. Su Semo raised her arms and shouted. Beat the experimental class. Everyone in the class cheered excitedly. One by one, they quickly returned to their seats, took out their textbooks and exercises, and began to study diligently. Hence, when Li Sihai arrived at the classroom and pushed open the classroom door, he was stunned to see a group of students working hard to solve the questions. He couldn't believe that these students, who had always loved playing, suddenly became so passionate about studying. He suspected that they might be up to something. He walked around the class suspiciously. After making sure that everyone was really studying, he walked toward Lu Miao with a smile. He called her out of the classroom and asked with concern, Lu Miao, can you see the blackboard clearly from the last row? Do you need to adjust the position in front? No, thank you. Lu Miao looked up at him. Is there anything else? Li Si-hai was about to say a few more words to get closer to her. But then, a cheerful female voice came from the other end of the hallway, isn't this student Lu Miao? I have something to talk to you about. Li Si-hai turned around and saw that it was Shen Meng, the homeroom teacher of the Year 3 experimental class. His expression instantly turned ugly. Needless to say, she was definitely here to snatch her away. He quietly moved his feet in front of Lu Miao, shielding her behind him. With a fake smile, he asked, why is Teacher Shen looking for my student instead of returning to the experimental class? As he spoke, he emphasized the words, my student, emphasizing that Lu Miao was from their Year 3 Class 1. Shen Meng smiled and said, you're too polite, Teacher Li. We're all students from Zhenhai High School. There's no need to differentiate between my student and yours. Li Sihai couldn't help but want to curse in his heart. Usually, when they were fighting for the school's resources, they were all ruthless. They wanted to snatch all the good resources for their own classes. Now she's acting like they belong to one big family. Hee, Teacher Shen is right. Since we're a family, why don't you give our class a few spots in the Triwizard Tournament next month against Fengqing High School and Jiangqing Experimental High School? Zhenhai High School, Fengqing High School, and Jiangqing Experimental High School were the top 3 schools in the country. Every year, they had to fight to the death for student resources, educational resources, and the enrollment rate. Every school wanted to trample the other 2 under their feet and take the position of the country's #1 high school. After a discussion, the 3 schools decided to hold the Triwizard Tournament starting this year. It would be held every 3 years, and each school would choose 5 contestants from each grade to participate. The top 3 winners of the competition would be guaranteed entry to Tsinghua University or Peking University. This is the first time the competition has been held, and each school is extremely determined to come out on top and outperform the other two schools. As the experimental class has the best grades in the school, the principal has entrusted the selection of candidates to the homeroom teacher of the experimental class. The smile on Shenmeng's face deepened. Isn't that why I'm here? Li Sihai looked at her suspiciously. Did you suddenly have a conscience? Teacher Li, what are you talking about? Shenmeng smiled as she walked past him and said to Lu Miao, the Tri-Wizard tournament is about to begin. I now invite you to join our experimental class and participate in the competition with a few outstanding students in our class to win glory for the school. Li Sihai cursed loudly in his heart, realizing that Shenmeng had an ulterior motive all along. Gritting his teeth, he said, Teacher Shen is trying to poach me right in front of me. That's not very good, right? Besides, no matter where Lu Miao is, the principal will let her participate in the competition. Shenmeng didn't mind his sarcasm. She smiled and said, that's true, but the contestants from other schools are also very outstanding geniuses. To be on the safe side, I plan to gather all the participants for training. Teacher Li doesn't Lu Miao to miss out on her future just because she can't participate in the training program in Class 1, do you? Then, she turned to Lu Miao. Lu Miao, what do you think? If he were to refute Shenmeng's words, it would seem like he was deliberately delaying her future. However, it wasn't easy for such a genius to appear in the class. He hadn't even warmed up yet, and he was snatched away just like that. Naturally, he was extremely unwilling. Li Sihai's face turned red and he could only turn to look at Lu Miao nervously. In the classroom of Year 3 Class 1, a group of students by the window secretly opened a small gap to listen to the commotion outside. At this moment, they could not help but nervously wait for their boss's reply. I'm not going. I'm not participating. Lu Miao rejected him directly. She had never liked to be high profile, and the Tri-Wizard tournament was bound to require all sorts of publicity. The recommendation was meaningless to her. Moreover, she was already used to being in Year 3 Class 1. Shenmeng did not expect that Lu Miao would reject such a rare qualification and an attractive guaranteed entry so easily. She was stunned. Lu Miao, do you want to reconsider? Lu Miao replied without hesitation, no need, there's no need. In the classroom, a burst of cheers instantly sounded. Boss didn't leave. That's great. Li Sihai also beamed with joy. Teacher Li, you heard it. Student Lu Miao said that she's not willing. Although every student in Zhenhai High School was the best among their peers, Class 1 was indeed the weakest in the school. In the past, Shenmeng was always the one who held her head high in front of him. This time, it was finally his turn to hold his head high. Shenmeng's brows were tightly knitted together. It was rare to see a student like her who could go to the experimental class but insisted on staying in the worst class. Helplessly, she turned around and went to look for the principal. Li Sihai's face was full of pride. He raised his hand and patted Lu Miao's shoulder affectionately. He said happily, I've long seen that you're different from the other students. You're outstanding and low-key. In the future, if you need help in class, you can always look for the teacher. Don't worry, even if you're in Year 3 Class 1, I'll definitely work hard for you to qualify for the Tri-Wizard tournament. The affectionate attitude he displayed towards Lu Miao now was completely different from the disgust he used to show every time he saw her. It was as if he had amnesia, forgetting how he used to call Lu Miao a useless student who got into the school through money and how he used to belittle her academic performance. It was like it was someone else and not him. When the people in the class heard his words, they could not help but show expressions of contempt. Chapter 35. Fell in Love. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hypocrite. Lu Miao took 2 steps back and avoided his hand. No need, I'm not participating. Li Sihai was stunned. How could he bring glory to Year 3 Class 1 if she didn't participate in the tournament? How could she do that? Lu Miao, are you sure you don't want to reconsider? Lu Miao nodded. Yes, and if there's nothing else, I'll go back first. With that, she turned around and returned to the classroom. Li Sihai was having a headache. He had thought that Lu Miao stayed behind to represent Year 3 Class 1, but now it seemed that she did not want to participate at all. When Lu Miao returned to class, a group of students immediately rushed forward and surrounded her. Boss, we thought you were going to the experimental class. You scared us to death. It's great that you can stay with us. The group of people chattered, each more excited than the other. If it weren't for the overwhelming aura exuding from their boss, they would have lifted him up in celebration right away. However, Su Mo calmed down very quickly. Boss, while we're happy that you're staying, giving up the recommendation opportunity is such a waste. It's okay if you transfer to the experimental class, we're all still in Zhenhai High School. Shen Muhan and the other students calmed down and nodded in agreement. Lu Miao put one hand on her shoulder and lifted her chin with the other. Your boss doesn't need a recommendation, she said domineeringly. That domineering aura made people want to kneel down to her on the spot. Su Mo's heart was beating wildly. Oh my god, boss is too strong and handsome. She almost fell in love. On the other side, Lu Xiu returned to the Year 1 experimental class dejectedly. She couldn't believe that the country bumpkin Lu Miao, who grew up in the countryside without any good education, had suddenly become a super genius who created her own advanced mathematics formula, won the special prize of the National Mathematical Olympiad, and was recognized by internationally renowned professors. She had trampled her under her feet in public. The students in the class were originally discussing Lu Miao's matter. When they saw Lu Xiu return, they were so busy that they shut their mouths. Gu Xingyu carefully went over to comfort her. Xiu, don't be too sad. Lu Miao must have done something to that International Mathematical Olympiad competition. My second brother is amazing. Helping her settle a competition with a few professors is not a small matter. The more she said this, the more annoyed and regretful Lu Xiu felt. When she thought about how Shen Qinghe had happily rewarded Lu Miao with a house, she wished she could turn back time. Who was the one who said that Mr. Gu was about to die? If not for this rumor, the Lu family would not have brought Lu Miao back and announced that she was not their biological daughter. With Shen Qinghe's love, everything in the Gu family would be hers in the future. Seeing that her expression was even uglier, Gu Xingyu quickly said in a low voice, I heard from some sources that our school is going to hold a Tri-Wizard tournament with Fengqing High School and Jiangqing High School next month. The first-place winner of each grade would be able to directly receive a recommendation to Tsinghua University or Peking University. You will definitely be one of the participants in Year 1. As long as you get first place and get a guaranteed entry, you will definitely be able to slap Lu Miao in the face. Is the news reliable? Lu Xiu asked suspiciously. Gu Xingyu nodded. Don't worry. It's absolutely reliable. This competition was jointly supervised by 3 schools. The other 2 principals were not easy to deal with either. No one could cheat. Even if the principal lets Lu Miao participate, he won't be able to help her cheat. She'll be exposed sooner or later. Lu Xiu's heart had been stifled all this while, and only then did she finally relax slightly. In the end, she could not believe that Lu Miao had suddenly become a genius. In comparison, she would rather believe that Lu Miao had bribed the principal. On the weekend, Lu Miao woke up in the morning and had breakfast. She told Shen Qinghe that she had something to do and needed to go out. Shen Qinghe had always trusted her and never interfered in her private life. She only asked her if she had enough money and if she needed a chauffeur to send her there. She didn't ask much else. After leaving the Gu residence, Lu Miao took a taxi straight to eastern Zhejiang. She found an extremely rare material on the internet. That person happened to be in Luo City, so the 2 of them agreed to meet at a racing track in the eastern suburbs. The competition was already in progress when Lu Miao arrived at the agreed upon location in the stadium to complete the transaction. Before she entered the door, they could hear the exclamations from the audience from time to time. After she got the items and traded them, she looked up at the accumulated prize pool on the big screen beside the stage and was thinking about whether she should go down and play. A loud sound came from the arena. Lu Miao turned her head and looked in the direction of the sound. She saw the two cars that were originally driving in the arena had collided and rushed out of the racetrack, crashing into the anti-collision road at the edge of the arena. Fortunately, the safety facilities in the venue and the safety facilities on the cars were very good. Although the two sports cars looked very damaged, the people inside were not in big trouble. After the car stopped, two people in racing suits rushed out of the car and started fighting. During the scuffle, their helmets were knocked off, and Shen Muhan's familiar face came into view. Lu Miao couldn't help but raise her hand to support her forehead. Why did she bump into this guy everywhere? However, what surprised her even more, was the other person who was fighting with Shen Muhan. A faint layer of grey mist enshrouded the person. This fog looked very similar to the one on Gu Shiyan, but it was also different. Lu Miao couldn't help but take a few more glances. The young man fighting with Shen Muhan appeared to be about the same age as them, with handsome features and a sunny disposition. However, at the moment, he was filled with hostility, and his movements were extremely fierce as if he wouldn't stop until he killed someone. However, this exquisite facial features gave her an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Those who can afford to play racing cars in this kind of place are the top-tier wealthy and powerful families in Luo City. They all have high pride and arrogance, refusing to submit to anyone. Seeing that the two of them were fighting more and more fiercely, the surrounding people were cheering and watching. No one went forward to stop them. There were even people cheering around them. Clearly injured from the collision earlier, Shen Muhan was at a disadvantage, with limited mobility. Lu Miao had no choice but to step forward and grab Shen Muhan's arm, pulling him back forcefully. At the same time, her other hand quickly formed a seal by her side and slapped toward the person opposite. Her movements were so fast that no one behind her could see clearly. They only saw that she only stretched out her hand and the person opposite her was pushed away. All of a sudden, everyone's gaze turned toward the skinny and weak little girl. The person opposite was pushed back a few steps. His expression was stunned for a moment, and the hostility in his eyes seemed to have disappeared a lot in an instant. Chapter 36. She looked too obedient. 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. However, he still looked at Shen Muhan and Lu Miao with a sour expression. Who are you? How dare you meddle in my business? Shen Muhan was shocked when he saw Lu Miao. Boss, why are you here? Lu Miao turned and glanced at him. Are you alright? Shen Muhan scratched his head awkwardly. It's nothing serious. I just sprained my neck when I crashed into the car. Otherwise, I'll definitely beat him up until his teeth are all over the ground. Turn around. Oh. Shen Muhan had complete trust in her. He did not ask anything and immediately turned around obediently. Lu Miao stretched out her index finger and middle finger and pressed on the back of his neck. After finding the right spot, she squeezed hard. With a creak, Shen Muhan's sore neck instantly felt comfortable. She turned around and looked at Lu Miao in surprise. Boss, you're amazing. You even know this. She was skilled in martial arts, good at studying, and even knew how to massage. What kind of god was she? Since you're his boss, why don't you settle the matter now? The boy said with a gloomy expression. Shen Muhan immediately rolled up his sleeves. It was clearly your mistake, and you yet still want to blame me. If you're not satisfied, we can continue fighting. Both of them were young and hot-blooded youths, and it looked like they were about to fight again. Lu Miao said calmly, how do you want to solve this, Binoel? Then the boy sneered. Since you're his boss, you can compete with me. No rules, 10 laps. If you win, I'll give you this racing track and let you leave. If you lose, the two of you can forget about leaving here today. The competition had stopped long ago, and many people gathered around to watch the show. Upon hearing the boy's words, everyone watched the show and shouted, "Compete, compete, compete." Shenmue gritted his teeth. You just want to win against me and get a chance to compete with Q. The incident earlier had nothing to do with my boss. I'll race against you, but you have to let her go. Q was a new female racing god that had recently emerged in Luo City. She could break a world record almost every time she appeared. However, she only appeared once every weekend and never showed her true face. Every time she appeared, she would wear a mask and only run one round. After receiving a huge bonus, she would leave immediately. No one had seen her true face. Q's appearance attracted many professional drivers from home and abroad. There were even managers of top foreign teams who wanted to poach her. As a result, the race track has a secret rule that those who want to challenge Q must compete with each other voluntarily every week. The last person to win would be able to race with Q. Naturally, he came to the competition to see the legendary racing god. Who would have thought that he would meet this unreasonable bastard? Racing was too dangerous. Boss was indeed a genius, but she had always been in the countryside. She probably didn't even know how to drive an ordinary car, let alone race cars. Letting her race was akin to sending her to her death. When Lu Miao heard this, her eyebrows twitched slightly. Did they fight like this just to challenge Q? The boy sneered, "All right, break one of your legs first, and I'll let her go." Although the Shen family was not as powerful as the Gu family in Luo City, they were still one of the top families. Shenmue had never suffered such humiliation before. He was about to jump up and make a move when Lu Miao stopped him. Sure. A group of wealthy young teens in the field, each one liking to play thrilling games. The surrounding crowd instantly whistled, and some people quickly went to clear the area and prepare the car. Shenmue was extremely anxious. "Boss, do you know how to drive? Racing is too dangerous. You should leave quickly. I'll take care of my own matters. Worst comes to worst, I'll fight him to the death." Lu Miao looked up at the boy opposite her. "What's your name?" The boy had an unruly look on his face as he said sarcastically, "Gu Jinsi. If you want to go back and complain to your parents, you're welcome anytime." When Lu Miao heard this name, her heart skipped a beat. No wonder she felt a sense of familiarity when she looked at his facial features. Gu Jinsi, Gu Xingyu's twin brother, had been sent overseas for some reason. According to occasional mentions by Shen Qinghe, he is a devilish little king in the world. Looking at the gray mist entangling him again, it didn't seem to be as deadly as the black mist on Gu Shiyan's body, but it was definitely not a good thing. Her fingers moved slightly, and a wisp of gray mist floated towards her. Just as it touches her hand, it instantly dissipated like a burning mist. Shenmue found the name familiar, but he was too anxious to remember who it was. The venue and the car were soon ready. The racing track even specially opened a bet between the two of them on the big screen. The group of wealthy young teens in the venue were all watching the show and did not mind the matter getting bigger. They actively placed their bets. However, everyone bet on Gu Jinsi without exception. In a short while, the stakes had reached tens of millions. After all, Lu Miao was wearing a school uniform with a ponytail and a school bag on her back. She looked too obedient. Someone beside him jeered. "Jinsi, remember to be gentle with her. Don't make the little girl cry and have to go home and complain to her mother. Why don't you just let her win a few rounds?" Ha ha ha. The group of people burst into laughter. Shenmue looked around and whispered, "Boss, why don't we sneak out?" Lu Miao looked calm. "Did you bring money?" Shenmue raised his hand and scratched his head. "I spent quite a bit before." I only have a few 100,000 in my phone now. If it's not enough, I'll call someone to transfer the money to me. Lu Miao raised her chin slightly towards the gambling table. That's enough. Bet all your money. Oh, okay. Shen Muhan took out his phone without hesitation and bet all his money on Lu Miao. Gu Jinsi looked at Lu Miao disdainfully. Since you're a girl, I'll let you have 2 laps. Don't cry when you lose and say that I bullied you. If it were anyone else, they would definitely feel humiliated upon hearing this. Lu Miao did not mind. She did not refuse and nodded. Okay. He went to the locker room to change into his racing suit. When he came out, whistles could not help but ring out in the stadium. It wasn't obvious when she was wearing her loose school uniform, but now, under the tight-fitting racing suit, her perfect figure was revealed. Especially that pair of long legs, their proportions were almost heaven-defying. All the men were stunned. The cars prepared for the 2 of them were all top-notch racing cars. Gu Jinsi disdainfully let Lu Miao choose first. Lu Miao pointed at one. Gu Jinsi pouted and arrogantly shrugged at Lu Miao, indicating that she could start running. At this point, even though Shen Muhan was very nervous, he could only cheer Lu Miao on. Chapter 37. The True Goddess. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Boss, you can do it. Safety first. Gu Jinsi looked at him with disdain. A grown man is following behind a little girl and calling her boss. Isn't it embarrassing? He had never expected that in the near future, he would be slapped in the face by this sentence countless times every day. Shen Muhan glared at him. It's none of your business. The referee fired. Lu Miao stepped on the accelerator and started the car. With a beautiful drift, the car's exhaust sprayed accurately into Gu Jinsi's mouth. Cough, cough, cough. Gu Jinsi quickly covered his mouth and ran to the side. F***ck, this woman is doing this on purpose. After Lu Miao ran 2 laps around the field, Gu Jinsi slowly got into the car and stepped on the accelerator confidently. He had wanted to overtake Lu Miao and catch up to the 2 laps that she had given up just now. Then, he would leave her behind by 2 laps and teach her a lesson. However, no matter how he operated, Lu Miao's car was steadily driving half a meter in front of him. 1 lap, 2 laps, 3 laps. The expression on Gu Jinsi's face gradually became more and more unpleasant. The race had already reached the 8th lap, and he still hadn't caught up to Lu Miao. In other words, he still had 4 laps to finish the race, but Lu Miao only needed 2 laps to win. If he couldn't overtake Lu Miao in this round and close the gap, it would mean that he had completely lost this round. The lively audience finally quieted down. Maintaining a fixed distance from her opponent meant that she not only had to calculate her own speed, but she also had to calculate her opponent's speed at the same time. She had to constantly adjust her speed according to her opponent's speed. Compared to directly throwing the opponent far away, this kind of control was obviously more difficult. Shen Muhan did not expect his boss to be so good at racing cars. Oh my god, what kind of treasure is this, boss? He really suspected that there was nothing his boss didn't know. He rushed to the sidelines excitedly, clenched his fists, and shouted, "Boss, you can do it. Boss, you can do it." At the end of the 9th lap, Lu Miao moved her hands and feet at the same time. She did a huge drift and instantly pulled apart the distance between the 2 cars. In the last lap, she was more than half a lap ahead of Gu Jinsi and reached the finish line ahead of time. At this moment, Gu Jinsi had only run 7.5 laps in total. In other words, even if he had not allowed Lu Miao to run 2 laps earlier, he would still have lost this round. Lu Miao had been controlling the distance. According to her movements, if she wanted to, she could easily outrun him by 3 or 4 laps. At the same time, the big screen next to the arena replayed Lu Miao's fastest speed in the competition. Most of the people present were aiming for Q. Although the speed displayed on the big screen was not as shocking as Q's, it was not weak either. After a moment of silence, the crowd began to exclaim. When Lu Miao got off the car, Shen Muhan, who was at the side of the field, rushed over excitedly. "Boss, your operation just now was too awesome. You kept crushing that bastard and didn't give him any chance to overtake you. You were like a top-level player brutally slaughtering a newbie. I shouldn't have doubted you before. You're the #1 invincible all-rounded queen in the universe." In the future, even if Lu Miao told him that she knew how to fly a spaceship, he would believe her. Lu Miao. What the hell was an invincible all-rounded queen? This was too Chinibu. A young man walked forward and extended his hand to Lu Miao excitedly. "Hello, I'm Dyson, the manager of the U2 team. Are you interested in joining us and participating in a world-class professional competition to become a world champion?" Q had already rejected him last week, and he was unwilling to accept it. He wanted to talk to her again this week, but he did not expect that he would accidentally discover another genius. "Boss, U2, one of the top 16 racing teams in the world, and also the strongest team. At the same time, he has the god of racing, Victor, and Valsai. He has won the world championship for 3 consecutive years." Shen Muhan whispered excitedly. "Not interested." Lu Miao refused without hesitation. Dyson did not expect to be rejected again after Q. Just as he was speechless, another group of people rushed up to him and pushed him to the side. Each of them gave Lu Miao their name cards crazily and offered her a high salary to join the convoy. After Lu Miao rejected all of them, she turned around and went to the changing room. On the other side, Gu Jinsi was completely dumbfounded. There was no need to continue running the remaining 2.5 laps. In the face of Lu Miao's overwhelming victory, the 2 laps he gave up were a humiliation to himself. He did not expect that he would be defeated by a little girl before he could even see Q. Seeing Lu Miao come out of the changing room, he got out of the car and went up to her. He gritted his teeth and said, "I'll give you the racing track after I settle the procedures. I'm not convinced. I want to compete with you again." "No need. Take it as my greeting gift to you. I still have to go home and do my homework. I don't have time to waste on these boring things." Lu Miao turned around and took 2 steps. She paused for a moment and turned around to say to Gu Jinsi, "You too." After saying that, he turned around and walked out of the racing track. Gu Jinsi frowned. What did she mean by that? A greeting gift. She even asked him to go home and do his homework. Was this humiliating him? Seeing this, Shen Muhan quickly ran after her. He asked excitedly, boss, how can you be so awesome even in racing? Do you come here often? Have you heard of Q? Lu Miao touched her nose. No. She's really super awesome. Since her first appearance, she had broken a world record every time she appeared. Even the god of racing, Victor, couldn't break her record even after trying many times. She was definitely the true goddess of the racing world. Most of the people in this competition came for her. Unfortunately, she only appears once a week and wears a mask. Only the winner has the right to challenge her. I haven't seen her until now. Shen Muhan's face was full of regret as he muttered, I had a chance to challenge her this week. Who knew that I would run into that lunatic just now? His eyes lit up as she thought of something. He turned to Lu Miao and said, Boss, you won in the end. According to the rules, you're the only one who can challenge Q this week. Do you want to challenge her? Lu Miao's lips twitched slightly. I'm not interested. All right. Shen Muhan nodded regretfully. Then, boss, teach me how to race. When I learnt everything, I can help you defeat Q. Chapter 38. Tell me if it hurts. 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After leaving the racing track, Shen Muhan insisted on inviting Lu Miao to lunch. In the afternoon, Lu Miao was going to the antique market, so he accompanied her for a walk before sending her back to the Gu residence with the driver. When they arrived at the entrance of the Gu residence, Lu Miao alighted from the car. Shen Muhan was about to ask the chauffeur to start the car when his phone suddenly rang. He took it out and looked at it. He hurriedly got out of the car and chased after her. "Boss, add me on WeChat. I'll transfer the bonus I just cashed to you." The prize money for the bet had already been received. Because everyone had bet on Gu Jinsi previously, the odds on Lu Miao had reached an astonishing 1.100. The money he had just bet had become 15 million in just half an hour. "No need. That's your money. You can keep it," Lu Miao said directly. "That won't do. Boss won the competition. I have to give you the money." Shen Muhan shook his head. Lu Miao thought for a moment. "I'll deduct your money and leave 2 million as class fees. We'll set up a class scholarship. In the future, regardless of the exam, the top 10 will get a bonus. Donate the rest of the money to the welfare home." "Alright, I'll listen to boss. Then I'll donate my money to the welfare homes as well." Shen Muhan nodded without hesitation. His boss was really a little fairy sent by the heavens. She was abused by the Lu family and then by the Gu family. She was so poor that she had to ride a shared bicycle to school and back home every day, and yet she donated all her money. Not only is she invincible and omnipotent, but she is also kind-hearted and beautiful. Mr. Gu, that sinister villain, was not worthy of his boss at all. He looked at Lu Miao's back as she left. Shen Muhan swore in his heart that one day, he would save his boss from the Gu family. Lu Miao had just reached the door when she heard the usually gentle Shen Qinghe throwing a rare tantrum. When he entered, he saw a familiar figure angrily disappearing from the stairs. It was Gu Jinsi. It was rare for Gu Shiyan to be at home. He must have rushed back to catch Gu Jinsi. Gu Xingyu was originally sitting on the sofa playing games. When she saw her return, her heart skipped a beat. She glared at her angrily and immediately ran upstairs with Gu Jinsi. She had to tell Lu Miao's true colors before she met Gu Jinsi so that he wouldn't be as silly as his mother and second brother and be bewitched by that country bumpkin. The anger on Shen Qinghe's face disappeared instantly and she looked at Lu Miao with a smile. "Miao Miao is back. Dinner will be ready soon. You talk to Gu Shiyan first. Auntie will go to the kitchen to take a look." Her son was busy every day. If it wasn't for the sudden disappearance of his little brother, he would probably still be on a business trip. This young couple had too few opportunities to be alone. She had to create opportunities for them. After saying that, she patted Gu Shiyan's shoulder and quickly turned around to go to the kitchen. Gu Shiyan went forward and reached out to help Lu Miao take her bag. Jinsi suddenly sneaked back to the country. "Mom was just a little angry just now." "It didn't scare you, right?" "No, it didn't," Lu Miao said. Gu Shiyan explained, "Jinsi has been rebellious since he was young and disobedient. 2 years ago, he met a group of bad friends who took him to race cars. Later, he injured himself and broke his leg. My mother forbade him from playing again. Especially in the past 6 months, his personality has become more and more irritable. When he sees us, it's like he sees his enemies. He fights, drinks, and races everywhere without caring about his life. My mother had no choice but to let me send him abroad." Lu Miao nodded thoughtfully. Thinking of the gray fog on Gu Jinsi's body, she looked up at Gu Shiyan. Because the blood curse had been broken, the thick black fog on his body had faded quite a bit. His complexion was better, and he no longer looked as cold as before. There seemed to be a hint of gentleness between his brows. If Gu Jinsi had changed significantly in the past 6 months, then the gray fog on his body might also be related to the 7 killing formation. She was engrossed in her thoughts and stared at Gu Shiyan without blinking. For a moment, she forgot her feet and thumped her knee directly onto the armrest of the sofa in front of her. Her whole body leaned forward, and as she regained her senses, Lu Miao was about to steady herself by leaning back. Gu Shiyan, who was at the side, chuckled. He stretched out his long arm and pulled her into his arms. He chuckled softly. Am I that good looking? Lu Miao was forced to press against his chest, feeling his chest vibrating. At such a close distance, a cold and refreshing scent rushed into her nose from his body. It was very pleasant, and she could not help but want to smell it a few more times. Hearing his low laughter, Lu Miao was embarrassed for once. She quickly reached out to push against his chest and stood up. Narcissistic. I was just thinking about something. Looking at the tip of her slightly red ears, the smile in Gu Shiyan's eyes deepened. This was the first time he had seen Lu Miao reveal such a girly side. His little friend was really cute. Without waiting for Lu Miao to retreat, he lifted her up and placed her on the sofa. Then, he squatted down in front of her and carefully rolled up her pants. Because of the collision just now, there was already a big green bruise on her knee. On her cold white skin, it was particularly shocking. Gu Shiyan could not help but frown slightly. Lu Miao took a look. I'm fine. It's just a little bruise. She reached out to roll down her pants. However, Gu Shiyan raised his hand to stop her. Don't move. He got up and went to the side to get the first aid kit. He found an ointment that could help promote blood circulation and remove blood stasis. He squeezed it in his palm to warm it up. Then, he gently applied the ointment to the bruise and said in a deep voice, "Tell me if it hurts." His careful movements made it seem as if she was facing a serious injury that caused her to lose a leg. Her master had died young, and she had been struggling all by herself. When she was most seriously injured, she almost died in a corner where no one was around. This bruise was nothing in her eyes, but Gu Shiyan treated it so carefully. Looking at the focused expression on his face, Lu Miao's hands clenched slightly. Gu Xingyu and Gu Jinsi did not go downstairs for dinner. The servant sent food up directly. After dinner, Gu Shiyan picked her up and personally sent her back to her room, not allowing her to reject him, on the pretext that she had an injury on her leg. Shen Qinghe watched from behind and covered her mouth as she chuckled. This young couple was too compatible. One was tall and mighty, while the other was petite and lovely. The only regret was that Miao Miao was too young. She still needed a few years before she could have a grandchild. Hopefully, her son could step up and win Miao Miao's heart, so she wouldn't run away. Upstairs, Gu Shiyan carried her directly to the bathroom and filled the hot water. He also took her pajamas and prepared everything. He bent down slightly and looked at her. Call me if you need anything. Lu Miao was helpless. There's really no need. You can go and do your own things. She really only knocked on the ground and did not break her leg. Gu Shiyan chuckled and raised his hand to rub her head. Chapter 39. Mr. Gu is the Devil. 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gu Shiyan chuckled and raised his hand to rub her head. Only then did he get up and leave. Lu Miao raised her hand and rubbed her messy head. After taking a shower, she returned to her room. Gu Shiyan almost came in at the right time. He applied the ointment on her leg again before leaving with a peace of mind. Lu Miao sat in front of her desk, listening to the sound of the car driving out from downstairs. So, he only stayed until now to apply medicine on her. But wasn't his time always precious? He was so busy that he barely had time to go home. Lu Miao shook her head and stopped thinking about these messy things. She turned on her computer and logged into the forum. When she wasn't online, Lin Bufan had almost become her unofficial agent and publicity ambassador. With his enthusiastic promotion and the positive feedback from her previous assignments, the offers from potential clients had reached 8 figures. Lin Buffon saw her online and immediately reported the situation on his side to her. "Master, I'll send you the materials I found. See if the talisman meets the requirements. Also, the protective talismans you made previously were very popular and received good feedback from the customers. There are already dozens of people who have asked me to place an order for the safety talisman. Boss, if you have time, can you make more?" "Got it." Lu Miao looked at her account's income on the forum. It was already 9 figures. After dealing with the matters on the forum, she was about to take out some talisman paper to draw some talismans. Suddenly, there was a thud outside the window. It was the sound of something falling to the ground. The Gu family's security system was top-notch. The thief would probably be discovered before he could even enter the door. Lu Miao got up and pushed open the balcony door. She saw Gu Jinsi dressed in black and carrying a bag on his back. He was slapping his butt as he got up from the ground. It was obvious that he had just jumped down from the 3rd floor and was preparing to escape again. When Gu Jinsi saw Lu Miao, he could not help but be stunned on the spot. He quickly reacted. "You are Lu Miao." The only person he had never seen before and who could openly move into the Gu family's residence was none other than the rumored daughter that the Lu family had brought back from the countryside and was engaged to his second brother, Lu Miao. "It's me," said Lu Miao. Thinking of what Gu Xingyu had said to him when she rushed upstairs and remembered that she had asked for his name at the racetrack, Gu Jinsi asked with an ugly expression, "Did you tell my second brother about me, causing him to find me so quickly?" He had specially sneaked back from the training camp for Q. In the end, he had not even seen Q's shadow before he was found by Gu Shiyan and captured from the racing track. At this moment, he was holding back his anger. If Lu Miao was really the culprit, he would never let her off. "I'm not that bored. I'm very busy. Help yourself." After Lu Miao finished speaking, she turned around and walked into the room. Gu Jinsi immediately followed behind her. "If you hadn't complained, how could second brother have found me so quickly? Is there anyone your second brother can't find?" Lu Miao went straight back to her desk and sat down. She stretched out her hand and pulled out a book to open it. Gu Jinsi choked on his words. He was right. His second brother was like a devil who seemed to be everywhere at once. Thinking of what happened during the day, he took out a document from his bag and threw it in front of Lu Miao. "This is the purchase contract for the racing track. I, Gu Jinsi, keep my promises. However, I'm not convinced. I want to compete with you again." Lu Miao had left without leaving any contact information at the racetrack. He was worried about how to find her. He did not expect her to be the legendary Lu Miao who was engaged to his second brother. Lu Miao did not even bat an eyelid. "I'm not free." Gu Jinsi went forward and reached out to throw the book in her hand into the trash can. "You do now." Lu Miao's eyelids lifted slightly. She looked at him and said indifferently, "Pick it up." Although her voice was calm, the expression on her clean and obedient face was calm. She did not show any signs of losing her temper. However, under the gaze of those beautiful eyes, for some reason, his heart trembled and all the hair on his body stood on end. Gritting his teeth, he bent down to pick up the book from the trash can and placed it back in front of her. "Are you afraid that you'll lose to me if we compete again? It'll be too embarrassing, so you don't dare to compete with me again." Lu Miao took a wet tissue and wiped the book clean before putting it back in its original spot. Then, she reached out and picked up the contract on the table. "This place belongs to you now." Gu Jinsi crossed his arms and snorted. "It belongs to you." No matter what, he had lost during the day. He was willing to admit defeat. Lu Miao nodded and stood up. "Follow me." Gu Jinsi originally thought that based on the description that Gu Xingyu gave him, Lu Miao would directly sell him out to his mother or second brother and perform well in front of them. However, he did not expect that Lu Miao would directly take him and successfully evade the Gu family's security system. It should be noted that the Gu family's security system was at a crazy level, and he had tried countless times to escape without success. Even standing on the dark and empty racetrack, he still felt a little dazed. Lu Miao went straight to the control room and turned on the lights. She turned to look at him and asked, "Aren't we going to compete? Tell me, how do you want to compete?" Under the bright lights, her beautiful face was confident and calm. Her entire body was covered in a faint layer of light as if she was a goddess of war who looked down on the world. Gu Jinsi finally came back to his senses. His fighting spirit was instantly aroused. Same as before. No rules. 10 laps. The two of them went to the garage and Gu Jinsi chose the race car that he was most familiar with. After he was done, Lu Miao casually picked one that was beside her. When the match began, Gu Jinsi learned his lesson from the day and did not underestimate his opponent. Instead, he treated Lu Miao as an equal and strong opponent. His hands and feet operated calmly, and he immediately brought out his strongest strength. He didn't believe that losing to Lu Miao during the day was a problem of his strength. It must have been because he had chosen a bad car and underestimated his opponent. This time, he must win her and show her his true strength. However, Lu Miao did not give him any chance. She stepped on the gas and immediately performed a beautiful S-shaped drift, overtaking him and blocking him behind her. Then, during his maneuvering, she seized the opportunity to leave him behind. Her every turn was flawless, whether it was an inside turn or an outside turn. In the end, she reached the finish line with almost 3 laps ahead of him. The huge gap directly crushed him. Gu Jinsi looked angrily at Lu Miao and demanded, "Let's do it again. Again. Again." Even Gu Jinsi couldn't count how many times they had competed under his unreasonable request. After so many competitions, no matter what method he used, how many racing cars he changed, or how many tactics he changed, Lu Miao was always able to leave him behind. Afterwards, it was an unsurprising crushing victory. Chapter 40. Sinister and Cunning Lu Miao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The racing skills that he was so proud of were like a toddler in front of her. They were so fragile that they were not worth mentioning. Gu Jinsi's confidence that he had built up for so many years was shattered in front of Lu Miao's unparalleled and absolute strength. He fell to the ground in frustration and covered his head with his hand. He said in a muffled voice, "You won. You can leave now." He had originally wanted to come back and challenge Q, but now, he could not even beat Lu Miao. What right did he have to challenge Q? After waiting for a long time, he did not hear Lu Miao leave. He raised his head abruptly and roared angrily, "Did you deliberately stay behind to mock me?" "Yes, that's right. I'm ignorant and incompetent. I'm a worthless person who only knows how to waste time and rely on my family's wealth and status. I'm nothing if I leave the Gu family. Who do you think you are? Aren't you still trying your best to suck up to the Gu family? What right do you have to mock me? Get lost." He had been completely driven crazy by the previous blow, and his words were hurtful and unfiltered, causing immense pain to the listener. Lu Miao did not mind. She just sat down beside him and said calmly, "If you're depressed and dejected because you lost to me today, then you can forget about becoming the world champion of car racing." Gu Jinsi turned his head abruptly and looked at her with bloodshot eyes. "You know that I want to be the world champion." From the moment he started racing, everyone thought that he was just looking for excitement for fun. Shen Qinghe and Grandma Gu felt that he was self-indulgent and insensible, and would only discipline him forcefully. Everyone outside the Gu family scolded him for being a playboy who only knew how to eat, drink, and play and squander his family money. No one thought that he truly loved racing and had his own dreams. In the past 2 years, he had dreamed of winning the world championship and slapping the faces of those who had once scolded and looked down on him. Lu Miao's lips curled up slightly. A driver who doesn't want to win the championship is not a good driver. Gu Jinsi pursed his lips. When he thought of his current situation, his eyes darkened and he said dejectedly, "What's the point of thinking about it? Even if my mom and the others don't object, I can't even beat you. How can I challenge Q and become the world champion?" Lu Miao narrowed her eyes and looked at the distant dawn. "In this world, there will always be someone better than you. Don't be overconfident because you won, and don't be overly depressed because you lost. Because you never know who your opponent is. Losing once did not mean losing forever. Losing wasn't scary. What was scary was never recovering from it. If you want to challenge Q and win the world championship, you have to show a stronger and more determined belief than her and put in 1,000 times more effort than her." Lu Miao's cold voice seemed to have gained warmth on this cold morning, slowly pouring into his heart. The sun was breaking in the distance, and the dim light left a perfect shadow on her face. Her beautiful eyes were sparkling, reflecting the bright and dark sky in the distance. Bdnv, the breeze blew her hair into the air. Because she was in a hurry, she was only wearing simple casual home clothes, but it did not affect her strong and determined aura at all. Even his entire body seemed to have calmed down. Beautiful and powerful. This was the most direct feeling he had of Lu Miao at such a close distance. She looked completely different from the treacherous, greedy, and scheming country bumpkin that Gu Xingyu had mentioned. He turned his head and stubbornly avoided looking at her. He said in a tsundere voice, "Don't think that just because you said this, I'll stand on the same side as you. The Lu family didn't have good intentions when they married you into our family." Lu Miao stood up and patted the sand off her body. "Up to you." Then, she turned around and walked out of the arena. Gu Jinsi clenched his fists by his side and quickly got up to chase after her. Lu Miao brought him directly to a stall selling soup and wontons. It was still early, and the street lights were still on. There were not many people on the street. Gu Jinsi had not eaten since last night out of spite. He was already famished. At this moment, he looked at the white wontons rolling in the pot. The hot fragrance continuously surged into his nose, and his stomach grumbled non-stop. However, her mouth was full of disdain. Is the Gu family bankrupt? Why are we eating at a place like this? Lu Miao was too lazy to argue with the little wimp. She said to the stall owner, "Can you give me a bowl, please?" "Alright, then I'll force myself to have a bowl too," Gu Jinsi said reluctantly. But once he started eating, he didn't hold back and ate 3 bowls before finally putting down his chopsticks, still feeling unsatisfied. He habitually took out his cell phone when he was about to pay, but he suddenly remembered that all his cards had been stopped by Shinqinghe yesterday. Helplessly, he could only turn to look at Lu Miao and bite the bullet. "I don't have money." The pitiful look on his face was different from the one who had generously given her a racing track. Lu Miao took out her phone to pay the bill. Then, she took his phone, opened WeChat, and transferred 5 million yuan to him. These were all the pocket money that Shinqinghe had given her for various reasons after she had arrived at the Gu family. She had not used a single cent. Gu Jinsi looked at Lu Miao suspiciously and said, "Are you trying to bribe me?" According to Gu Xingyu, Lu Miao was sinister and cunning. She had a lot of tricks up her sleeve and used some unknown method to bewitch his second brother and mother the moment they met. Could it be that they were bribed with money? However, their family did not lack this bit of money. "Think whatever you want." Lu Miao handed the phone back to him nonchalantly, then turned around and headed home. Gu Jinsi looked at her thin back thoughtfully. Whether it was the way he talked or his knowledge, Lu Miao did not look like a country bumpkin from the countryside. In fact, she was far superior to him. How could such a person be what Gu Xingyu said? It was still early. When the two of them returned to the Gu residence, other than the servants, no one else had woken up. Lu Miao woke up early almost every morning to go out and exercise. The servant was already used to it, so she only greeted her and did not ask much. Under Lu Miao's cover, Gu Jinsi quietly went upstairs to his room. Shen Qinghe thought that Gu Jinsi would run away again last night. Unexpectedly, not only did he not run away, he even appeared at the dining table in high spirits. Unlike his previous behavior where he would become easily irritated, throw tantrums, and wish to destroy the world when he was forcefully brought back, he was now mentally alert and full of energy, with the enthusiasm and vitality that a teenager his age should have. When he saw her, he even took the initiative to greet her for the first time. "Mom." Shen Qinghe looked at her unfamiliar son in surprise. "Is this my son?" Had her son gone crazy or finally succumbed to mental problems? She went forward suspiciously and raised her hand to touch Gu Jinsi's forehead. "Are you sick?" "No, I'm fine." Gu Jinsi pushed her hand away. Gu Xingyu, who was walking downstairs, glanced at him suspiciously. "Mom, don't believe him. He must be up to something bad and is preparing to escape. Get lost." Gu Jinsi rolled his eyes at her. He stole a glance at Lu Miao, who was quietly eating her breakfast at the dining table. He hesitated for a moment before sitting down next to her awkwardly. Gu Xingyu thought of the warning she gave Gu Jinsi last night. Gu Jinsi had always had the nastiest ideas, so she guessed that he was definitely planning to take revenge on Lu Miao for her. She sneered in her heart and sat down at the dining table, waiting to watch the show.